Friends, we made it. It's fall. Maybe not according to the calendar or the weather, but for those of us who simply endure summer and wait for the burr months to come back, we made it. Welcome to my video about my fall knitting plans. Hi, hello, my name is Bethany. This is my channel where I talk about my knits and any other bits that I feel like. I'm coming to you from Northern Ontario, Canada, where it is fall. I'm going to say yes, it's fall because I'm wearing a cardigan. The weather has not gotten the memo quite yet because it's pretty warm outside, but that's okay. We're gonna just pretend. We're gonna pretend, okay? Because it's time to think about your fall knitting plans if you're not already there. Because, you know, knitting is slow and it takes more time than we think. So actually you probably should have been thinking about this in June. But you know, it's fine. It's fine. It feels seasonal to talk about this. So we're going to talk about it. So these are my plans, large air quotes, but I think of this more as, let's call it a menu. It's a menu, a small menu that I am going to choose from this fall to make some cool stuff. Because, you know, committing to that many items is probably unreasonable, given that I work full-time and knitting is my hobby, right? I don't do it full-time as a job, so as much as I might want to, I'm not going to have enough hours in the day to knit all these things. So again, let's think of this as a menu. The first few things that I'm going to go through are like pretty much solid plans, and then there are probably going to be some honorable mentions in there. So let's get started. One of the things on my fall knitting plans is the Maema or Maema, I think it's Maema, cardigan by Nodecker. And I'm actually inspired to knit this one without the brioche that you see hopefully in the picture that I've popped up. It does have brioche stitch on the back and the fronts, and then I believe the sleeves are knit plain. But Sarah of It Is a Sarah knitting podcast either has knit or is in the process of knitting a version of this just plain, just in stockinette. And I'm like, you know what? I like that. I like that a lot. Not that I won't ever tackle the brioche, but you know, it eats yarn, right? And the yarn that I would like to use, I only have so much of. So let me show you that. So this is the yarn. It's blowing out a little bit because I apologize for the lighting. I'm trying to film in here and the light is being really weird today. And I've done all sorts of like trying with lighting. But you know what? We're just gonna live with it. So if I feel like I need to, I'll pop a better picture up of the yarn if I feel like it's really blown out on camera. But this is Full Moon Fibres. Shout out to them. You know I love them if you've been here for a minute. So this is their solar sock, which I also love. And this color is called Walnut. And it's like, could you have a more fall color? I feel like it's reading more orange on camera than it is in real life. But it's just like this perfect blend of brown and rust and orange. And I love it. So this is what I'd like to make my Maema cardigan out of, because I think it'll just be wonderful. I think I'll wear it a lot. As you can see, I also have like a rusty colored cardigan on, which I wear all the time in the fall. And I'll actually talk about what pattern this is. This is a version of the Menders cardigan by Brienne Moody. And the Menders cardigan is meant to be knit in reverse stockinette, meaning that the purl side is meant to be the right side, or the side that's showing out. If you can see this, if you're not watching on a tiny screen, you'll notice that like it just looks like a stockinette cardigan because I'm wearing the knit side out, because I preferred how that looked with this yarn. If I recall correctly, I knit this in reverse stockinette, but then when it came time to pick up for my sleeves and the button band, I just flipped it inside out because I preferred what the what the stockinette side, the knit side, looked like, because I had every intention of, you know, knitting it as written in the pattern. And then I didn't like how the purl side looked in this particular yarn. So I flipped it inside out, and here we are, and it fits just fine. So, hot tip there. Yeah, so Maema cardigan, but plain with walnut yarn is like kind of up there on like the number one thing that I want to wind up that yarn and get swatching for that. However, if I don't do that, I've got like another cardigan option because librarian. And this is a pattern that I have had queued for a really long time, but I've just struggled to find yarn, and hopefully the yarn that I've picked out at this point will be the yarn that gets me knitting this pattern. This is Rosanna by Elizabeth Smith, and I'll hopefully pop a picture up. And as you can see, I was very inspired by the color of the yarn in the pattern photo. It's this gorgeous, let me hold it up here. It's this gorgeous, again, blowing out a little brighter, lighter than in real life. Basically just a gorgeous berry shade. And I love it. This is Woolstar Gazzal. I think that's how you say it. And the color is boysenberry. So, I mean, that right there gives you, see, and now the light has changed again and it looks different. So sorry, friends. I'll probably end up popping up pictures, but that's okay. We're making it through. So, yes, I would like to knit the Rosanna cardigan. I'm a fan of longer style cardigans, particularly for work. Not sure why. I have a tendency not to wear them not at work, but I don't know. Maybe it's a comfort thing. I have no idea. But I really like the details on the Rosanna cardigan, how it sort of has some sort of lace-ish detailing, and it looks really cute. I think the only modification I might make to that is I love a pocket, and if I have yarn left, I'd love to put at least one like sort of patch pocket on it, just so that I can, you know, throw your phone in, throw your lip gloss in, like whatever you're gonna carry around in a little pocket would be super helpful. So we'll see if that happens. Again, I have limited yardage of that as well, so if there's not enough for a pocket, there's not enough for a pocket. This next one is, it's really fun, and I feel like it's kind of seasonal. So if you've been here for a minute, you'll know that I love knitting the frog pattern, and I'm completely blanking on the designer's name, but I'll pop up a picture of my frog that I love knitting, and I've knit a bunch of these, and I've just given them as gifts, but I have a frog. His name is Jeffrey. We love him. I should bring him into the podcast, I think. I'll just have to find a spot, like, behind me to put it. Maybe he and Manchi will be friends. So we'll see if that materializes in the next video. Anyway, in that same vein, I am aware that the gnomes are really fun to knit. Specifically the gnome patterns by Schira, who I met back in January just by happenstance at a work conference, and that was really fun. And I chatted to her about how I love her gnomes, but like haven't ever tackled it. I have a very good friend who has, I think, knit every single gnome pattern that Sarah has ever put out. You know who you are. Comment below if you've knit them all. She said to start out, the No Fun Like Gnome Fun pattern is a good one to start out with, because basically instead of only using fingering weight to get a tiny little gnome, you can use whatever weight you want, which is very cool. So, I mean, it still only takes small amounts of yarn, which is helpful. So I have a plan to maybe knit one in worsted weight or DK, just so that it's not super fiddly. I say that as somebody who has knit multiple little frogs in fingering weight. So maybe I'm just, you know, putting up a barrier that's not really there. But I would like to cast on one of these gnomes and make one. Feels very seasonal. This next one is like not a firm plan, but I have had this top queued in my Ravelry queue since last summer. And I suppose strictly because it's a tee, it probably will be a summer wear more than a fall wear, but it's called the Cake Crop by Olga Putano Designs, and it just, something about it feels fall to me, and maybe it's just the design of the color work where it's like kind of like, it's almost gothic. It reminds me of gothic architecture, I guess, or, you know, Victorian architecture or something like that, which I also heavily associate with fall. So I really would like to cast this on. I just need to find a yarn pairing in my stash that hits the right note. I am definitely going to use black as one of the colors, but I have seen versions where instead of the dark yarn being the color work in the color work design and the rest of the top being in a variegated or a lighter color, folks have flipped that so that the variegated or light color is what highlights the color work design in the top, and I really like how that looks. So basically it will end up being a black knitted tee with some color work in it, but I just have to find the right pairing. So like TBD on that. We'll see if that gets cast on or swatched in any way. The next thing on my fall knitting plans is a shawl. I do love a good shawl for fall, and it is Evaporate by Justyna Lorkowska. I have knit at least one of her patterns. I knit it last year, actually, almost this time last year. I knit her, I believe it was leaflet scarf or shawlette thing, and I actually knit it on right after my wedding. I had cast on because my husband and I got married last September, so our anniversary is coming up really soon. So I thought, you know, I have a week off after the wedding, so I'd love to have a special project to work on, and that's what I chose. I'll pop a picture up here so that you can see the finished object. But I really like her patterns, and Evaporate looks really beautiful. And I also have some green yarn that's, I sort of don't know what to do with, and there's enough for a shawl. So I think that would be a really cool thing to do, because, you know, then it can just be thrown on like a scarf, or the back of my neck gets cold because air conditioning. That might be a really nice one to have on hand, and also feels very autumnal, because I think I'm gonna go for like a darker green rather than like, say, a leaf green or something like that. Keeping in the green theme, the next thing on my knitting plans list is the Spruce socks. I think these are really cute. Like these scream, hi, hello, I live in Northern Ontario, Canada, and I have to have like spruce socks. Like, so they've been queued for me for a long time, but I haven't found the right green yarn, because I feel like it's a delicate balance, because the motif of the tree is just done with stitches and not with color work. I feel like you might not want to use a yarn that is super variegated, even if it's variegated in the same tones, right? Because I feel like that motif will completely get lost and you won't even see it. So I would probably need to have something something more tonal, or like basically really flat to knit. So I do have some options. Of course, I didn't bring them. What I did bring was this, because like this green is like the heavy inspiration for the spruce socks, but I'm not going to use the marled yarn because I really don't think the spruce motif, like the tree pattern, will like stand out enough in this. This is a sock set that I got in a mystery bag, and if you didn't see that video, I'll link it below. That was really fun. I went to Little Red Mitten in St. Thomas, Ontario, grabbed a mystery bag, and I do love a mystery bag, and I unboxed it in one of my videos. But yeah, I feel like this green is like also a very heavy fall inspiration, but I don't know if I'll end up using it for that particular pattern. I might find another one though. Okay, we've gone all the way through this list, and I haven't mentioned Summerlee until now. So those who have been watching my videos for a while will know that I knit the October 2024 Colorwork Cuff Club design basically as soon as it came out. I don't think I've knit anything quite so quickly. But and I'll pop a picture up of those socks. The sad part was they didn't fit me. So I used the needle size recommended, but perhaps between the thickness of the yarn that I happen to use and maybe my tension, because I did feel like that Colorwork felt a bit fiddly for me, so maybe I was pulling too tight. I don't know. They didn't fit me. So they are now decor that goes on sock blockers when it's time to decorate for Halloween. So my mother bought me a skein of Full Moon Fibres solo sock in a colorway called Boo Barn. We both just fell in love with like how autumnal this was. And she was like, could you use this to re-knit the ghost socks? And I'm like, yes, actually, I think that would be pretty cute, because as long as the ghosts themselves are knit out of solid yarn, they won't get lost in the variegated. And I actually think, the more I think about it, the cuter that sounds. So that is a plan. This is pretty much a solid plan. Like, I'm probably going to wind this up very soon, and then dig out, the, scraps of white and black yarn that I still have, to knit the little ghosties onto here. And I think that'll be super, super cute. So Summerlee did make this list. Okay, we are on to basically the honorable mentions section. These are things that like, if I had all the time in the world and like could knit every day for as long as I wanted, these are the things that would also be on my list and would most likely be cast on almost immediately. The first one is Cardigan 17 by Sylvia Heidinger. If I didn't pronounce that correctly, I apologize. I'll pop a picture up. I am in love with the sort of lace texture motif of this cardigan, and I also really, really love the color that's used. I'm not going to be that person who hunts up the exact same yarn, because I don't think that's possible for me here in Canada. But I am going to do my absolute best to like match the color in another yarn that I really like. So this is why this is an honorable mention. I don't have yarn in my possession to cast this on right away, because honestly, otherwise I'd be like, look, it's a work in progress. I've already cast it on. Because there's something about this that I just love so, so much. And it might be the color, even though I don't know that color might suit me to wear as a garment, but you know what? I don't care. I really, really like it. And I'm just going to get as close as possible to that sort of, it's like mustard chartreuse almost. It's a very interesting color, and maybe that's what I find so attractive about it. So that is an honorable mention number 1. TBD on whether I find yarn this season or whether it's something that I just continue to search for yarn for, and then it maybe gets cast on at another time. My other honorable mention is the Merry Raglan by Elizabeth Margaret. And here's the funny part. I have yarn for this sweater. I have yarn caked up for this sweater. I just need to get myself together and start swatching, really. Like this could be a work in progress if I really wanted. This is yarn from, oh gosh, sorry, it's got hair all over it. This is yarn from the Frosted Stitch. I believe this is Deep Freeze DK. I know it's DK. I just can't remember like which of her bases in DK this is, but I'm pretty sure it's Deep Freeze. And this is from her library collection, where she has a series of tonals in one collection, and it's based on library. And this colorway is called Stacks. So it's sort of a burgundy brown gorgeousness. Oh, look. It's just this, but darker, really. And the other thing about the Merry Raglan is it's a lace motif, or a mesh lace motif, and I think the reason I haven't swatched is I find that a little bit intimidating, to be frank. And I've knit a lot of garments, so I don't know why I find this intimidating. It's maybe because I view it as special, or something like that, or that the yarn is special, and maybe I'm just a little bit intimidated to actually get cast on or to swatch. But maybe maybe that will be the goal for fall. Maybe not casting on this particular project, but maybe just swatching for it. I feel like that's a good goal. That's maybe a couple of evenings worth of swatching, depending on how well that goes. Because I will admit, one of the reasons I have a tendency not to swatch for some projects is I find swatching sometimes frustrating, because I feel like my gauge is weird. I'm weird. Sometimes it's way too tight. Sometimes it's way too loose. Sometimes even though I'm right on, I'm still not happy with how the fabric is looking or something like that. Lately I've just developed some coping strategies, like doing some gauge math and changing the size that I would normally knit to suit the gauge that I actually have and really like. But you know, gauge swatching can be, you know, a time. So I sometimes don't enjoy that. I'm working on enjoying it more and seeing it either as its own exercise or simply part of the process that needs to happen, because I'm usually really happy with a finished project that I have taken the time to swatch with. But I've also had the opposite experience where I haven't swatched at all and just like trust and believe, and I've managed to create a really nice garment that fits well, that I wear all the time. One great example of that is I think the very first Mender's cardigan that I ever knit. I wanted to hold yarns together that were in this turquoise color. I'll pop a picture up of me wearing it. And because I had, like, for a long time, and I mean it still is, a turquoise and that sort of aqua blue are really my favorite color. And so I was like, I need a sweater using those colors. And I had some variegated stuff that heavily had that in it, but it didn't go with anything else. So I thought, oh, I'll hold these yarns together and I'll knit this cardigan. And when I run out, like, you know, so I was sort of taking my chances that way. And I ended up with a great sweater, larger than I had anticipated in terms of sizing, but I'm actually really happy about that because I can just, like, it's big enough to throw over most things, including long sleeves, even though the sleeves themselves are more like 3/4 or almost bracelet length. So that can look a little weird, but the point is that there's enough room in the garment that I can throw it over a long sleeve top. So anyway, that, I didn't mean to bunny trail on to talking about swatching and gauge, but like, here we are. I think that's why I find casting on some projects a little bit intimidating, because of the need to swatch, and it's like, how much time that's going to take? Is it even going to be successful? And like, I know it sounds a little bit defeatist, but it's like when the gauge swatch doesn't work out, it feels a little bit like I failed before I even started, which is not true, right? Like, it's a reminder that, you know, like gauge swatching is an opportunity to problem solve, basically. Like, you change your needle size, because if you're really married to using that yarn, you just change your needle size, or you change the size of the garment, right? And it took me a long time to, like, remember, you're the boss. You're the one who's doing the knitting, so you are the boss of the knitting. Even though it might not feel like it all the time. But just remember, you're the boss of your knitting. You know, there's always a way to make it work eventually. The other thing is maybe you have to change to a different pattern. I've also done that a number of times. Like, if it's really not going to work with the pattern that you want to knit, there are so many knitting patterns out there that no matter what you want to make, you can probably get really close to what you originally wanted. But anyway, all right, that is enough tangenting. I've also reached the end of my fall knitting plans list. Let me know like what you're planning to knit. Put it in the comments. You know, whether it's a bunch of things or just one thing, or whether all you want to do is swatch for a bigger project or what have you. Let me know. I'm super interested. If you like what you see here, please like and subscribe. And I hope that wherever you are feeling safe, you are feeling cozy. And until I see you in my next video, keep those stitches moving.